Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Starin One-on-One. My name is Chris Neto, and today I have the pleasure to once again meet with a friend of mine, Mr. Monte Bennett. Monte is with Barco, and I have a lot of questions for Monte. So off record, which we were talking, a lot of good conversation was coming about. So I said, Monte, I want to press record and see where this conversation goes, because we were kind of debating. And I love to be able to bring you guys into our little conversations at times. And this is one of those times because the world is changing. Monte is now a homesteader in New Mexico, living off the grid. And I was interested by that. But then it took a whole different turn as we got into the conversations regarding Clickshare conference and displays. Monte, how are you?
I'm doing well, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Hey, man, it's good. Good to see that you are back in action. Obviously you moved out to New Mexico and went super low tech while working for a high tech company, which I love the parody there. It's awesome.
It's been great. You know, we moved out here the first week of March, right as everything was shutting down. I never imagined that I would move to New Mexico and basically not get on a plane and travel back east again for work, for 8 months now. It's been good so far.
I guess since there is nobody near you, so you've been practicing social distance ever since you signed the real estate papers. It's awesome.
My nearest neighbor's a half mile away.
Awesome.
It's only
awesome.
a single neighbor at that point.
All right.
So
The question that I have, you guys back in January, you brought out the Clickshare conference, right? Brand new product. Mm-hmm. I'm familiar with the product, obviously as one of your distributors, but you guys go to ISE. Here it is. Here's the product. Did a lot of product demos regarding it. Very interesting. A lot of buzz around it. And then you left Amsterdam and the world changed.
It did for sure.
I love to hear this part of it because this is the manufacturer's point of view for many people that aren't privy to these conversations. Everybody left and went to Amsterdam in the AV industry, assuming that it was going to be business as usual. But nobody's ever really talked to a manufacturer and brought the manufacturer's point of view. What was it like? I mean, your company has a huge presence in Europe, obviously in Belgium. That's where your headquarters is. What was it like the first onset, the first couple weeks of that? Like how did that impact you guys? Like what was the big change right away and the realization of what was happening in the world?
Yeah. I mean, it was, for the number of people that we have here at Barco that travel, on a weekly basis, whether that's going out to see resellers or end users or our distribution partners, right? It didn't take long. I mean, it was literally by the middle of March or so, us as a company had said, hold on, time out. If you're traveling, stay home for a bit. We're going to figure out what happens over the next 30 days. Of course, we know that didn't last just 30 days, but it continued. But like for us as well, I think one of the biggest things with Clickshare Conference for us was that, we knew that the majority of meetings in businesses, right, in corporations, enterprises, were still happening in the room with people together with a remote user or two, kind of logging out, and coming back in, right? But then literally that just flipped, and it was 100% of meetings were then online and 100% of the attendees were online. And it's been, as everyone went home instead of into the office, I'll be very honest with you. We had a bit of a slump in sales right off the bat as things kind of got figured out, but that's came back pretty strong for us so far. We're figuring out that as the people that work in offices are starting to go back there, they're figuring out that the office is still there as a building, but it's different. The meeting rooms are the amount of people in a meeting room have changed. The amount of space between people has changed, right? So that whole dynamic is much different, but it's playing out very well for Clickshare Conference, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, you guys. Yeah. You guys innovated the space without a doubt. Wireless presentation. When you guys first came out with Clickshare, and you
Sure.
were there in the early days. We've spoken about this. How you were number 2 or number 3 on that Clickshare team that came on with Barco to help
For the U.S. market.
drive that. So you were there early on when the game was let's get a signal from A to B wirelessly for presentation. If Clickshare was still just a presentation thing, it would have been a tough move. But what I personally have observed within the, within the world, is that there is now an acceptance to turning on a camera and being on video. Where prior to this, maybe 8 months ago, or even this time last year, there was a reluctance to being on video and turning on the camera and all that. And here you guys come with Clickshare Conference, which puts you in a unique position, because I think through this time, and I could be wrong, I think through this time, a lot of people have been finally, after all these years, and for those that don't know, I've been in the industry since '98. My first job out of college was for a VTC install company. And back in '98, we were pushing video conference as a way of the future, a way to reduce travel. But here we are 20 years later, 20 plus years later. And finally, I think that conferencing or video conferencing and collaboration remotely has now finally been accepted as as an everyday thing that could happen. Because prior to this, conferencing was, if me and you were on the same team, we would call, maybe turn on our cameras, but we would never consider, hey, let me call a customer and do a demo remotely. Now I live in New Jersey. Would I have to go into New York? You've now made the inevitable move of going to New Mexico. Like, I don't think there's many customers in New Mexico where you are, especially unless you want to maybe a couple of Gila monsters out there and maybe some lizards. But now, all of a sudden the mindset has changed. How has basically the mindset of conferencing worked to say, worked in the benefit of a Clickshare conference?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things for us is the fact that pre-COVID, right, there were maybe, I don't even know the statistics here, but there was probably 25% of the workforce that had some experience with online meetings on a regular basis, right? Sure, you may have some folks out there that once a month they had a monthly meeting and someone had to call in because they were on the road, or they were working remotely from their house or something. But all of a sudden, that number literally changed to 100%. And like you said, it's now, and in many cases, we have some internal rules that aren't written down that, like, if you're on a call, you turn on your camera, right? Maybe not necessarily for like an all hands call where there's 80 of us on a call or 50 of us on a call, but if there's 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 people on a call, everyone turns a camera on so we can see and interact with each other and make it a little bit more personal. So now all of a sudden we have these people that literally maybe occasionally used video conferencing. They were occasional Zoom user or Microsoft Teams user, and now they're a power user. Yeah. Now they schedule the meetings themselves. They start the meetings themselves. They share content through the meeting platform themselves, right? And as those people have now had an opportunity, in many cases, they're starting to leave their home office, go back to the work office on maybe an occasional basis, right? The hybrid workplace is a reality. I know that many companies out there are saying, hey, you come in on a Monday and Wednesday if you feel safe and you want to do it. Otherwise, I'll have another crew and another team that come in on Tuesday and Thursday. And people want to get back in the office. And we've seen some statistics that say that, that about 30 or 40% of folks really do want to get back into the office at least a couple of days of the week, right? So they get back into the office and they scheduled this meeting, but it moved from Tuesday to Wednesday, and they were going to do it from home. They're going to do it from the office now. They know how Zoom or Teams works. They want to sit down and do it, but there happens to be that one other person in the meeting that happens to be in the office the same day, and they go, hey, let's just grab an office together. Let's grab a meeting room. If there's a Clickshare conference, they start the meeting the same way. They open it on Outlook and they click join meeting, right? The only difference is they plug a Clickshare button in, and in 7 seconds they hit the button, And the camera and the microphone and the display in the room are now broadcasting all of that for them, right? And it's a more inclusive, it's a more immersive experience because you're not looking at individual people on the other end who are huddled around a laptop anymore.
Yeah.
It's all of a sudden it's like, hold on, I can see the 3 or 4 people in the room now, socially distanced, of course, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that experience of the power of literally everyone being a power user now with Zoom and with Microsoft Teams and WebEx and so forth, um, going back into the office, stepping foot into a meeting room, and just innately understanding what they need to do and utilize Clickshare Conference to empower them is a strong message.
I mean, I'm a power user. I want to put that out there. I'd like to put that little name tag on me as a power user. I got 2 displays in my office, right? And
right.
This is my home office. And yeah, I take my CX50, which has the extra inputs in it, and I do move around from display to display and stuff like that. So there is the graduation of, let me flip open my laptop, turn on my camera, and use my laptop microphone and camera, to I need a bigger, richer experience. And that's not just going to come off your laptop anymore. So it's going to come from other cameras and using different monitors and displays and presenting to that. And the Clickshare conference, as I've always explained it, is a center hub that allows you to reach out to other things and have other devices connected, not just what your standard laptop is. So I think people have elevated their game to the point where, say in March, things were good enough, right? Good enough meaning you used your camera, you used your microphone off your laptop. As schools got back into session, teachers now wanted to have a better way to present to their students, whether that's, whether that's in their home office, or even in even getting back into the school, sitting in front of an empty class that's using wireless sharing to share within the spaces so that they can freely move. Wires trip you up, and that's what I always found nice about Clickshare. And especially now with the conference, when you start adding the components and the lack of, let me pull this apart and take this wire out and plug it in, and let me just have it all kind of set it and forget it, without sounding too much like a commercial. That's the good thing about Clickshare Conference, the agnostic side of it. But as people become bigger, better power users, feature-rich products are going to step up and be necessary and needed. So, all right. So we're now going back the hybrid office, or the hybrid model, not the hybrid office. I'm going to have to disagree with you, because I don't think we don't have a solid footing yet on what the office of the future is. And let me be clear, office of the future is in 6 months. We don't know. But what you said is absolutely true. I think that these offices are going to start moving into a different categorization. Like, I think they're going to be more the jump off point, or if you're in town, the kind of like, the lounge where, hey, I'm going to be in New York. I'm meeting an integrator in New York. Let's stop by our office. I could show you the Clickshare conference. At the same time, let's do a meeting there and bring in your coworker from DC, right? Save them the 5-hour trip up here. We're okay to meet. We can meet. It's only 2 of us in this space. Now, granted, it's social distance, but let's bring in some other people. That person who you're meeting with, their company, uses Microsoft Teams while I'm a Zoom home. The Clickshare conference now steps up and answers that, because it now becomes a safe way to basically present without going through all the rigmarole of, will this work? How do I connect this? My laptop is incompatible with that. So where have you guys seen that really shine for the Clickshare conference?
So for us, the big thing is empowering the user to use whatever they're familiar with, right? If Teams or Zoom or WebEx or whatever it might be is what they're used to using, what they're familiar with, continue that. We're not trying to make that any different, right? At the same time, the beautiful thing is the fact that once you have a Clickshare conference set up in a room, and that, sure, that can be a meeting room back in the office that, that used to seat 8 people. Guess what? In the future, that seats 3 or 4,
Yeah.
right? That seats half of that, right? And and that one room may have brand X camera, another room may have a brand Y camera. You may have something else at home that you decide to kind of stick on top of your secondary monitor, for example, right? The Clickshare conference doesn't matter. You don't have to go once you've done that and it's set up. You don't have to go into your laptop and select your audio and your video settings before every call. I mean, that's a huge hassle, right? The Clickshare conference remembers that. And if you take your laptop from your home office environment back into the office or into a separate office, right? You go and you meet Chris in New York, for example, and that office has a whole different setup. Doesn't matter. Plug in the Clickshare button. It's going to recognize the fact that these USB devices are what's installed in there, and it's going to work for you.
Yeah.
So it makes it a lot more agnostic, like you said, as far as like the experience is just plugging in and using it. You don't have to worry about going in and resetting all these parameters and these settings and making choices, because people don't know how to do that. They'll retreat from that very actively, in fact, right? Oh God, I don't want to do that, and they'll retract from that. So for us, I think that's one of the biggest things is just that bring your own. We call it BYOM, right? Bring your own meeting. Use what you're familiar with, and let the technology in the room do the rest for you.
Awesome. Well, now I want to trip you up just a tiny bit, because it wouldn't be a conversation if I don't throw a curveball at you, right? So what people that are watching this video may not know, because maybe they've gotten into the industry just this year, God knows, who knows, but let's refresh people. Barco has its roots in video displays and projection and big displays. Let's just call it
dozens of years. Yeah.
All right. So now we're in a world where we need to be distant or social distancing as of right now due to pandemic. This brings up an interesting kind of thing. Are we, and this is just me and you talking here, is there going to be a renaissance for projectors? Now, projectors have been getting a bum rap. I'll be the first to tell you. Projectors, they've shrunk rooms down into 2-person huddles and put a monitor in there, where once that was,
right.
It was gravy. You didn't even have to think about it. Projector screen, on off button, maybe just a remote. Let's call it a day. Then they started to pull those out and put put in LCDs and LEDs in this space, TVs, displays. Do we see, or do you think that we are ripe for a projector renaissance in spaces that, maybe once was once just held to a 4-person room? Now it has to be bigger to accommodate, 6 feet from each person. Are the projectors going to, in your opinion, Monte, you're not a Swami. I'm not putting any money
I don't have a magic
into the
8 ball.
Zoltan machine.
Right.
Yeah. There's no magic 8 ball going, but what do you think? Do displays now automatically have to step up in order to meet the social distancing?
I think there's a few things there, right? So first off, in those applications where we were able to get away with maybe a 65-inch display in the past in a room, right? That was good. That was good for a room where you're going to seat, 8 people. Okay, well now we're seating 4 people or 3 people in that same room at 65-inch, right? Okay, well guess what, right? Displays are made up to 85 and 100-inch sizes. Okay, fine. So 100-inch screen can go in a room that used to seat maybe 20 people. Well, now we're seating 8 to 10 in that same room. The thing is, the fact that companies and organizations and conferences are going to happen and meetings are going to happen, and they still want to find a way to interact with 100 people or 50 people at a time, not just 10, right? So if you want to put 100 people into a space, it's got to be a big space now.
Yeah.
And because of that, that requires, depending on the lighting and everything else in the room, but that's going to require, a 10,000 or 12,000 or something, some larger size screen and some brighter, more, higher image quality projector to go along with it, right? So I think that what we'll see is not necessarily that these meetings drop in attendance and in size and in number of people, but they're going to have to increase in space.
Mhm.
You know,
That kind of
even
goes.
throughout. Yeah, go ahead.
I was to say that kind of goes with the trend that nobody really is talking about outside of people fleeing the cities, because a lot of people fleeing big cities just because they can now go to the suburbs. It doesn't matter where they live if they're working remotely. But now the companies, in some aspects, a lot of companies are looking for the remote areas. I've read articles where like Omaha, Nebraska is booming because people can buy a lot of land and a lot of property and space themselves out. So in line with what you're saying, yeah, you can have what used to be a 300-person auditorium built for 100 people in Omaha for a fraction of the cost it would have cost you to do that in New Jersey, for example.
Chicago or
So
something. Yeah, right. Exactly.
I think that renaissance of the projection and the big displays, and not just that. I mean, you guys are also in the LED business, right? You're also in the Unicy LCD business, right? These big displays come into play because now it's quality, right? I think good enough is gonna be a tough one to sell. If you're moving things out and you're gonna have to go into that office that one time, you're not gonna go that one time and be unimpressed with
Right.
with a meeting that you couldn't read the print because somebody went ahead and didn't put in the right amount of blinds, or didn't have a bright or powerful enough projectors. And you
Right.
guys, I know from my time that I spent with you, yeah, you did put a lot of time into engineering, into every little detail of the big displays. And it's something
Right.
that you guys don't get a lot of the credit for. And I'm here to say that you should, because the quality of the stuff that you guys have been doing into the big UDX lines, and, dare I say, the big 75,000 lumen projector that's still floating around.
The XDL.
XDL, man, that is that is, it's not mythical. It exists,
That's right.
people.
It does.
It's out there. But your LED and obviously the Unicy products, they're poised for these bigger spaces where quality
Right.
counts because of detail and the fine details within the images, and to be able to
And
read
also,
at a further distance.
absolutely, absolutely. And one of the things I think there that we will see more of in the future is formatting outside of the 16:9 forum, right? It is making in many cases, right, we have limitations on ceiling heights,
Mhm.
but we don't necessarily have a limitation on width
Yeah.
regarding that. Like, relatively speaking, right? It's like, look, I don't need a 16:9 aspect ratio on a projection screen necessarily. I could do 3 or 5 projectors in a blend. I could do a video wall in a permanent installation in whatever aspect ratio I want to go with. And then back that up with some Barco image processing to be able to put any size image anywhere on that canvas that you want to. Make it big, make it small, put something, do picture in picture, do, all this kind of crazy stuff that we can do with the image processing products. But you're going to have to find a way to make it more immersive, to increase that wow factor. Because it can't just be like you said. People are not going to travel. People are not going to willingly, in some cases,
Mhm.
want to go somewhere else just to sit through the same old boring experience they've done it. It's going to have to knock your socks off in a lot of cases. And Barco has that technology from a visualization standpoint to do that for you.
My favorite ribbons that I've seen, or meeting memes that I've seen on the internet lately, have been, I just sat through another meeting, and it's a ribbon actually that they gave you. I just sat through a meeting that could have been a text,
The
right?
participation trophy. Yeah,
Participation trophy, right?
yeah,
These are people that, obviously have traveled the distance for something that could have easily been done on video. And you're right. You can now think about a wow factor into the space, because you're not maybe replicating that wow factor over 100 times, and you're not creating all these smaller rooms. But now if you're going to have this one big room, you can add the Clickshare component to that and allow everybody to share from remote parts of this massive room, as I'm envisioning, and kind of this big
yep,
band of projection or big band of LED with the image processing kind of canvassing across the front of the room, and it can be in all different shapes and sizes. And you can have multiple screens repeated so that people from different angles see it. You know what? I think it's going to push creativity, because many times we've only had to worry and think in a rectangular way, front of the room, people in audience style, people in whatever. I think that spacing out, going wider, has to now push us to the edges, and it's going to give engineers, fits, for lack of a better term. They're going to get like, how am I going to do this? And I think it's going to have to change their mindset of, what, a standard size screen is not what we're looking for. Let's go outside the box. All the years we've been talking about, thinking outside the box, but you're right. It's the future projection screen doesn't necessarily mean 16:9. It could be multiple 16:9s kind of stuck together and then broken into fourths. And it's really going to push the 4Ks, the 8Ks, the 16Ks to do what I guess we always thought and dreamt they can do, in a different way. And it will add some fun and creativity back to being, a designer of a space. And we can finally play with curves on walls, for example, that the architects have always wanted, but we've always poo-pooed because we don't want it. We just want a screen to project on. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do a lot of projection mapping with our image processing products. Other creative companies have to come up with the content, right? Mm-hmm. But we have that ability within amazing projection mapping solutions to be able to project on literally anything you want to. And it's kind of like, okay, well, here's the screen, here's where the content's going to be. But what does that building look like behind that?
Yeah.
Like, okay, all of a sudden I'm going to include what's going on. Maybe pipe and drape don't have to like completely close off the front of the room anymore. We start figuring out that, we can start utilizing the architecture for something else, right? We're sitting here talking about this, and I was thinking to myself that in a lot of ways, like if Starin wants to host an event somewhere, right? And you go into a hotel that's got a lot of conference room space and everything else. We get to the point where people are, okay, we've got we've got socially distanced space between us. We're able to do these kind of things, right? But in the past, you go, I need to be able to sit 50 people in this room. So that was like the first question. How many people? 50. Yeah. Okay, so you're going to be stuck then in a room that is 30 by 30. Boom. We're going to do that because the chairs latch together, and this is how many people we're going to sit shoulder to shoulder sitting in this little room, right? Now, it's like 50. Okay, well, now we're going to need a room that is 60 by 60 in size, and we're going to have to separate the chairs. We're going to have to move out. Well, now because of that, right, the AV designers don't think about the number of chairs. They think about the space.
Yes.
Now all the spaces are bigger. Spaces are bigger every single time. And spaces have to get even bigger now to accommodate groups, right? So I think that's going to be an interesting revolution there as well. It's like, we don't, breakout rooms are going to be for what? 4 or 5 people, not 20. And well, I'm sorry, but maybe some of the hotels have a lot of little breakout rooms that they rent out. That may be a problem for them at times, because now to put 20 people, you're gonna have to sit 20 people in a 25 by 25 space, not a 15 by 15 space.
That's a great example, because I wasn't even thinking about that in the rental, in the hoteling space, because you're right. We always look for the paper that says it's 30 by 30 or 100 by 100. We never looked at how many people or what the capacity was. Capacity was for fire marshals, not for 80
right.
people, essentially.
Exactly. Right.
So it brings up some interesting points, and you're 100% right, because even on a personal note, my cousin wanted to have a Sweet 16, and in order for her to have 100 people, which was cutting a lot of the family out, which it happens, right? Yep. She had to rent a hall that can handle 400 people. Ultimately, New Jersey locked down again, so that whole thing kind of went away. But you're even seeing that on a personal level. So if somebody wants to argue that, please go try to rent a hall and say you want to have 100 people, because that hall has to accommodate X amount to prove what you're saying is true right now, unfortunately. it's it actually goes back to another depth within Barco. You guys have a lot of experience, obviously, in the NOC world, network operations and security. And a lot of those are following that same kind of process where you have these massive monitors where the content is constantly changing. So if anybody understands that it's not going to be a 16:9 world going forward, is people that have spent time on that network operation side where it goes from 16 small monitors tracking little blips that are happening in on the East Coast, and then all of a sudden something happens and it encompasses the entire canvas for everybody to see that's sitting in the network operations center. You guys have a lot of experience on that side end of the display business that many have not experienced as a company that is
control room.
Very well involved or very deep into the control room business.
Very much so. And we're seeing with my position as the director of distribution, I'm seeing things come through the pipe through distribution where control rooms that were designed for maybe a medium-sized control room, right? Maybe a NOC, maybe a security operations center, emergency operations center, that had maybe it was designed originally as a 3x5 wall, 3 high, 5 wide, right? Well, guess what? Now they're going, well, actually, we need to utilize another row of people behind where we are, so we can socially distance people out. And they add another row and another width, because the people in the back, in some cases they don't want people looking up quite as far, but they realize that people in the back, like the whole room has shifted further back in cases, because you can have more people on that back row, right, than you can the front row because of angles and stuff. So we start seeing, that those walls are becoming bigger. Or even better is we can only put 12 people in that room now. We have 24 operators running this system. We have to build another room. It's either a floor up or a floor down or a floor over or a building over or whatever it might be.
But it's inevitable.
But they're separating those teams. And it's like, well, okay, well now instead of just a single 3x5, it's 2 3x5s, and it's all the infrastructure that goes along with it as well.
That's why I love hitting a record button with Monte Bennett on the line, man, because we start talking about Clickshare, and I knew we're going to end up, figuring out, the government's problems and how they can better manage things with a better NOC operation. That's
right. I've got some acreage out here in New Mexico. If they're willing to buy, by the way, I can build a NOC over on the other side. We'll have to power it with solar, but
So this, it all ties back together, obviously, because as things space apart, obviously the need for wireless, which is where you guys have been playing in that space from the onset early on, as a basically a vertical maker. You guys made that vertical of the wireless displays, and when you guys came out, everybody else was playing catch up with Clickshare. So you have everybody spacing out, which needs that wireless presentation, which has been around for years. That is common sense. That makes sense. Then you guys now have Clickshare Conference, which is going right in line with everything that we're seeing, where, today it's a Zoom call, tomorrow it's a Microsoft call, this afternoon it could be a WebEx call. It doesn't matter what the platform is. You're going to go into a space at some point. It could be today, it could be tomorrow. And, having that kind of agnostic, hub for the room makes a lot of sense, when right now we're still trying to figure out how many seats we need in a room and how far apart we need to be in a room. And if you are going to bring in guests, you want them to be safe, and you don't want to hand them something that is somebody, unknown's computer, because it's kind of a weird thing right now. People don't want to touch anything. So, you go there with the conference, then you're looking at the displays and go, man, the displays are just not fitting the space, because we need to go bigger. And you're right. Maybe it's an underutilized wall that we should be going wider as opposed to, staying within the norm. It plays really nice to the Unicy. It plays obviously really nice to some LED panels that you can click together. Not that simply, I'm oversimplifying that, but you can click together and kind of build out the size and the display that you need. And obviously you guys have a wealth of knowledge in the image processing side, which can window anything that you're looking to do and create them into the spaces. So I'm confident that you guys have it together when it comes to this. And I think a lot of people right now, in a world where people are not sure what tomorrow is going to bring, I know the things that I can rely on. I'm going to do video conference. You guys handle that. I need to see what is happening, and I need a better way to share my material. If I'm in the same space, you guys got that. Is there anything you guys don't have under control outside of world peace? Because we're all working on that.
Maybe food delivery. We don't
Yes.
do a whole lot of that either.
No pineapple on pizza. I have to throw that in there so somebody throws a nasty comments into the video below about there goes Chris talking about pineapple on pizza. But anyway, you guys got it all.
Depends on the solution there, though. I mean, Canadian bacon and pineapple, I'm okay with.
We may not be friends after this.
We're never friends again. And again, I haven't had delivery pizza in at least a year after moving out here, so it's okay.
Before we wrap up, what is the one thing that we, if you have 10 brand new integrators listening to this right now, maybe a couple people within Starin that are new, what should they know about Clickshare conference, for example, that maybe is something that is not obvious to them right now that they should be aware of to help make a decision, whether that is, if they're teetering on, should I be making an investment in Clickshare conference for this project or not?
One of the things that I've been pushing back a little bit on our marketing group is also to not step away from the wireless presentation necessity that's still going to exist, right? We kind of developed that vertical market. We did it initially, but since then, we've continued to do it, and we do it securely, right? We do it right. We do it easy. So to me, I think that's one of the things. Second is the fact of Clickshare Conference has continued, with our alliance partnerships that we have with a lot of other vendors out there in the world that do things really well from what they do, whether that's the camera, whether that's the microphone, whether that's the speaker side, right? We're constantly partnering with new people and new companies out there, and even working with the ones that we started this with back in February and March, to say, look, where are your new products? What are you bringing out next? Because their world has changed too. For several months, a lot of those companies sold every single small camera and every single little table, little small desk-sized speakerphone thing they possibly could for home office purposes. But as they start going back to the office again, they go, okay, like we need to start worrying about what are we doing in these bigger rooms. And a lot of those companies made stuff great for those rooms that sat in the past 6 or 8 people. Now those rooms, the bigger rooms have to say, I don't want to spend all this money on putting 40 microphones in the ceiling, but I need a microphone array that can do this. I need a camera that can actually do 180-degree shot so that it can see the 4 people sitting in the room. So like we're continuing to work with all those alliance partners to make sure Clickshare Conference works like every time with those people as well. So we continue to update our online list of compatibility partners and making sure that things work. We've got some great stuff happening next year in firmware for Clickshare Conference. I think that's one of the things that people need to take away is that when you buy Clickshare Conference, it's not, we've already had a couple of major firmware updates for it as it is. Next year, it's going to continue to grow. So what you buy today is not what you're stuck with for the next 5 years. There are new features, new upgrades, new functionality coming next year. Some people say, well, I'll just wait till then. Well, you could, but I'd recommend enjoying the experience for what it is now. And then as you need to add it to additional rooms in the future, you start looking at the new functionality.
Yeah.
Right. So we'll continue to grow that throughout the next years. We don't charge for firmware updates. We don't have some, pay to play type of plan like other manufacturers do that require you to every year renew something so you get firmware updates with it. It's like, nah, you continually update it, and if Microsoft makes a change to Windows, that's okay. We're going to catch up with it. It's going to continue to work for you. So, that functionality will continue to grow.
All right. For those that are listening, I'm about to do what I never do, but I'm going to actually do a little plug here. As you spoke about your alliance partners. We actually have a really great program. Actually, we're putting it together on a bundle, not necessarily something you're to, don't think of it as a bundle if you act now type stuff, but with your partnership alliances that you have, and I know Mr. Fitzgerald's been working hard at securing a lot of those alliance partners, and Dave Fitzgerald's a great guy and somebody I know at Barco as well. We have put together basically a little group, kind of like Power Rangers. When we bring you guys all together, you guys form a nice big Megazord. If you have kids, you know what I'm talking about. If not, I just completely went over your head. But brands like LG, Jabra Panicast specifically, Salamander Design, and Barco are all putting together a nice package for rooms that you just wheel this thing in and there's zero infrastructure involved. That is still a very big thing for a lot of people as budgets are tightening. Having something mounted on the wall is still super expensive, and getting obviously conduit and pipe and all that sort of stuff. So watching these four companies come together and kind of put together an all-inclusive kind of zero infrastructure impact package was pretty cool. And to be able to have all those brands represented under Starin. That's it. I close my plug. I'm done. I did what I need to do. Thank you so much, Monte. Monte, where can we find out more information about Barco?
Barco website, www.barco.com.
That was too easy, man. I need you to stumble.
I know.
I needed you to think about that. Yes, Monte, thank you so much. Monte has been a friend of mine for a bunch of years, and I appreciate you having on, letting me hit record on our meeting and to take this and kind of tape it. Oh God, that I just date myself and tape it, record it to then put out there later. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Chris Neto. I am the market development manager here at Starin, and this has been Starin One-on-One.